Do you have what it takes to get your Etsy shop to that $1 million plus level? So just about 1 week ago, I had the privilege of being in a room with about 20 other multi-million dollar business owners. So this was a mix of 7 and 8 figure businesses. People flew in from all over the world to gather for this workshop. And I was really interested to see how this would go, what these people would be like. And during those 2 days, I picked up on 8 traits that were a common thread throughout all of these business owners. So today I'm going to share with you what these 8 things are so that you can begin to adopt some of these traits for yourself to scale your Etsy shop to that multi-6-figure, even 7-figure level. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dylan Jarris, and I'm an Etsy shop owner of about 7 years. I've sold over $1.5 million in revenue on this platform, and that's over $1 million in profit. A lot of people talk about how much they make on Etsy, but I do think it's important to differentiate between revenue and profit. So my entire background is corporate e-commerce, and that's really infused into all of my teachings. So now while I still have my Etsy shop and I sell on Amazon and Shopify, I teach Etsy sellers just like you how to build multi-6-figure businesses. So what did I learn from being in this room, and how did we end up here? So first of all, just so you know, Etsy alone, now that only did about $370 last year in revenue. Now the margins were over 70%, but that's just one piece of our total umbrella of businesses. So the reason why we were qualified to be even in that room with these people was because our umbrella of businesses produce enough for us to be at that level. But being an entrepreneur is something that not many people understand. And so when we had the opportunity to be invited to this workshop, we jumped on it. And this was the first time that we ever really came together with a group of people who had similar levels of goals as us. And my goodness, I realized how important that is. There were people with all different types of businesses from all over the world. Some people had flown in from Israel. There were a lot of people within the US and from every age group you can imagine. There were people who were 21 years old running multi-million dollar businesses, and there were much, much older people there as well. I would say age does not discriminate, and it's really never too early or too late to build a $1 million business. The first thing I learned is that you do not need to be a genius to build a $1 million business. So I met people who were making over $1 million a year, and they publicly said that they felt like their marketing was like a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. A lot of times we think, oh, we have to have everything dialed in, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 in order to hit that type of level. I found it's not at all the case. And in reality, hitting that first 100,000 is much harder than hitting the first million. Why is that? Because it's the biggest percentage increase. You're wearing all of the hats. And those two things mean that you have to have the ability to prioritize correctly to hit your first 100,000. Knowing what to focus on and when is a learned skill. And not many people have yet developed that skill in their first 100,000. But really, if you've been able to get to 100,000, you can get to 1 million. You really can. The second thing I learned from this group of business owners was that being succinct and concise is a skill. It's easy to talk, but being succinct takes thoughtfulness as well as an ability to prioritize your words. And I always try to say the most in as few words as possible. And when applied to Etsy, this goes for your Etsy descriptions as well. I've worked with many shops whose descriptions are really lengthy, and I know the customer who's, half the time shopping on mobile, they're not taking the time to scroll through the description. The points are not getting across in an efficient way. So being able to condense down the point of something is a skill. This goes for your Etsy descriptions, your pictures, and even the items themselves. I'm sure you've all seen those digital products that are like 1,000 pages, and they're boasting of this on their listing photo. But when I see that, my question is, how efficient was the use of that 1,000 pages? How much fluff is in that 1,000 pages? If you work on condensing down and really boiling down your communication to only value, you will get better results for a greater number of people. And you will also convert a greater number of people in your listings. And in my program, Multi-6-Figure Etsy Blueprint, we really teach focusing more on the customer than the product. And premium customers value their time more than money. They typically don't have time to sift through 300 pages of fluff just to find the 2 pages of diamonds. So practice being succinct and concise and getting straight to the point. And the way that that came across in that room of multi-million dollar business owners was that when they explained their business, they could do so in 30 seconds. Who do they serve? What problem do they solve? And how do they make their money money. The third trait I found throughout these multi-million-dollar business owners was a willingness to be uncomfortable longer than anyone else. There was not one lazy person in the room. There are people who in life, they will take the easy route. They will take the path of least resistance. They'll kind of receive things as they're handed to them. And then there's people who chase down their goals with relentless determination, and they don't let any hurdle stop them. So for them, their goals are a matter of when, not if. And what it takes to endure the path to success is not sitting in your comfort zone. It's actually a game of endurance and pushing past the point when everyone else would give up. So these business owners, you can tell, they're always trying to optimize things. They're not okay with being complacent. They're always looking for ways to grow and improve and learn. They're not the Etsy shop owner who would get to, let's say, $10,000 a month and then be happy, content, I'll just keep it going like this. These people say, I got to $10,000 a month. How do I 10x that? How do I scale this? How do I remove constraints to grow the business? You can see they put themselves through really uncomfortable periods of growth and uncomfortable situations because they knew what that would mean for them. It meant that they would win. And not everyone has this in their nature, but all the people in this room, you could tell they had pure grit. So if you are an Etsy shop owner and if you are thinking, oh, this is too hard, this isn't working, I don't know what to do next. If you're stuck focusing on the things that aren't working instead of pushing forward and learning and evolving and improving and optimizing every day, then it's really going to hold you back. Another thing I saw about these million-dollar business owners was that they always keep investing in themselves to keep learning more so that they can keep earning more. You can tell they never want to be the smartest person in the room. They want to surround themselves with people with unique experiences so that they can keep learning, keep pushing, keep growing. They're naturally curious people and they're always trying to learn about other business models and tactics that are working for other people. And they know that if they stopped learning and growing, then their business would really start to shrink because all the competition around them continues to push forward in growth. So they know that if they stop investing in that learning and growing, that they'll start to become less and less relevant and they'll start to lose market share. You could tell that they knew what it took to learn some of those expensive lessons. So when they see an opportunity to maybe, 10x, 100x their revenue by paying for someone else's expertise in their business, they jump on that opportunity. And this brings me to my next point. Million-dollar, multi-million-dollar business owners, they understand the concept of opportunity cost really, really well. An opportunity cost is always part of the equation when making business decisions. So instead of looking at a decision like, what if I try X and this doesn't happen? They instead consider, well, if I keep with the status quo and don't try X, then what could I be missing out on? What is the cost of potentially missing an opportunity? What is the cost of not changing? What is the cost of not trying something? So they don't just think about what do they have to lose if they try something. They also think about what do they have to lose if they don't try something. Most of these businesses that were in this room, it was really interesting. They're not that old. It didn't take them 15, 20 years to get to this level. Some of them, it took them a year or less. And if you're scaling to that level that quickly, you really need to rely on things that will speed up the process. And these people understand that time is money. Another thing I noticed about these business owners was that they had a really keen ability to prioritize. And prioritization is a learned skill. If you're not prioritizing correctly, you grow much, much slower, maybe even like 10% of the speed you could otherwise grow at. And you're also leaving a lot of money on the table. So not knowing how to prioritize leads to spinning your wheels and wasting potentially months of time. And not knowing how to prioritize things when it comes to Etsy could leave you making simply pennies on the hour when you're working on your business because you're not doing the right things at the right time. So misprioritization can be really, really costly to a business. And in this room one morning, we actually did a case competition where we all looked at a 20-page document and it was filled with, all the metrics, the numbers, the data, and everything of a different multi-million-dollar business. And it was filled with both qualitative and quantitative information. And we had 45 minutes to present a business proposal to a board. Now we did this on Teams and my team actually won. But if you were to go to any of these business owners individually, they could each pull out the 5 things that business should focus on and in what order to focus on these things to 10x the volume of the business. So these fellow business owners, they were masters of prioritization. So in your Etsy shop, shop, I really encourage you to take a look at all the different ways that you're filling your time. Look at the high leverage activities and the lower leverage activities. Look at the things that make a big impact and look at the things that make little to no impact. And if you need help evaluating this for your business, I would love to work with you on that one-on-one. I do have coaching as part of my program, Multi-Six-Figure Etsy Blueprint. The seventh thing that I noticed, they have the ability to get out of the way so that they are not the bottleneck in their business. Basically, they know when to get help. So little side note here, my husband and I actually went to this together, and we were actually the smallest business in terms of the number of employees in this room. These other business owners had pretty robust teams built out to support the growth and scaling of their business. I'll be the first to admit, I'm self-aware enough to know that I am too slow to hire. And I learned a lot from these other business owners in terms of scaling through strategic team building. So personnel, team members, right? People you hire, just like something like pricing, right? Both of these are levers to pull when scaling your business. And if you, the business owner, become the bottleneck in your business, it's not going to be as smooth of a trajectory as it could otherwise be. And what I learned from this was that you should always know the next 2 to 3 hires that you could or would make. And it's not just the people to hire. You just have to know what the position is and what the role would entail. This was a huge piece of the conversation. Everyone was talking about all their personnel, all their team members, and how they fit them together like a puzzle to scale their business. And the pieces are always moving. So it's not just you put the pieces in and they stay there. The pieces are always moving and shifting, and they're adding some, taking away some, putting some in different areas, but they're always reworking this to make it the strongest foundation for scaling. So in your Etsy shop, I would be thinking about, where are you spending the most time? What are you doing that you shouldn't be doing? What are the lower dollar per hour tasks that you could easily hire out? So if you are starting to get to your max capacity here with production, fulfillment, or creating new listings and designs, what are the actions that make the most money? Focus on those. And everything else, figure out, okay, what kind of a role could I build around that and bring someone in to help me when I'm ready? So the last trait I noticed about these people, maybe this should have been number 1, but I would say it's the ability to move fast. So everyone in this room was fast moving, meaning they don't take forever to make decisions. They have a whole list of things that they're going to test and try next. They say they're going to try something, and then they get on their phone and they put it into action. So after this 2-day workshop, I could only imagine what kind of actions came out of that. I could almost guarantee that everyone in that room went back to their business and started implementing the first day they got back. If not, maybe on the plane ride home. These types of people, they don't sit and ponder. There's really not much sitting at all. And it's interesting because they didn't seem exhausted, even though they were all moving really fast. And I think it's because they were all moving towards something that really excited them and that gave them energy. So then that movement itself, right? The testing, the trying, the changing, the implementing, that itself fueled them. And I think the reason they move so quickly is because the sooner they try something, the sooner they learn. So they fail fast and they move forward. I saw a clear picture of how action really trumps overthinking with this group of people. So they would learn something from a mentor or another business owner, and they would immediately get those pieces in place to execute on that. So not 1 month from now, not even just by the end of the week, but these are like same day actions. So this is like when you are talking about your Etsy shop, you're talking about what you want to try, you're talking about the new products, you're talking about getting listings up and giving yourself a short leash, on that timeline from which you are thinking about it to when you're acting on it. So I hope you enjoyed learning about these traits of these multi-million-dollar business owners. And I found that it is really important to surround yourself with other people who are seeking that same level of achievement. So if you're someone who, you're looking to make like 20 grand a month from your Etsy shop, and yet everyone you're surrounded just by people who are just living off of like unemployment or something, then I highly recommend getting yourself into a community of people who are like-minded, who have similar levels of goals and a similar drive as yourself. We do have a great coaching element within my program, Multi-Six-Figure Etsy Blueprint, and it's all done in what's called a community group. So you are surrounded by like-minded individuals, and these people are all working towards the same goal of building a multi-six-figure shop. There are people in there who have done things like made $150,000 in their first 7 months on Etsy. So if you would like in on that kind of high-level coaching group, let me know, reach out. I do have a couple of spots available, but I do cap the number of students in this group. If this interests you, just reach out on Instagram at Dylan Jarris or email me team@dylanjarris.com. And if you like videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.